Hello, flat earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. Sorry, just doing some adjustments to my setup. Hope you can see it all right there and hear me all right. And I hope you're having a good January. It's been a while since I've gone live or even made a video. Things have been pretty rough in terms of just having to get lots of things done, basically. So, Sunday afternoon here in Phuket. It's rather a nice day. The rainy season has come to an end, so it's a bit drier these days. So I thought I'd share the sights and sounds of the garden. Got the whiteboard set up in case there's a need to go through some ideas and stuff. Plenty of them brewing, but yeah, a couple of points I wanted to make in this video really, which we'll get to, just see who comes in. Hi, who's that? Growing Buds, Dean Floyd. Happy New Year, yeah. Still in the New Year period, I suppose. Hi, is that Liz? No, yeah, Lizzie Armaden, hello there. All right. It's probably a little bit warmer here than it is with you. But it's going to get dry. I had an email from someone just this morning. Well, it was interesting, just talking about the stars and the sun and the moon, and I suppose it is a kind of a good talking point, because the whole point of this is to be able to detach from that conditioning and the belief in the way our perception sees what's going on in the sky and puts us in this place within that model, as it were. And I suppose one of the main things to kind of get your head around before talking about different models and things like that is just separating those movements in the sky, the sun and the stars, for example, rotating or passing overhead at different rates of speed. And just getting around that concept is enough to understand how it all is possible to see what we see going on in the sky above a level Earth, rather than assuming that everything in the sky is moving about not because it's moving, but because we're on a spinning ball. So that's one of the main points, right, of this whole thing, is to understand and accept to a certain degree, or a large degree even, that we have believed something. And this, of course, goes across all aspects of our life, whether it's you're talking about relationships and work or decisions you make in life. Yeah, you have to think about and be cautious about whether you know something to be true or just believe it to be true because someone has told you something, and then you've been set up with a belief as a foundation on which to base all your other decisions and thoughts and other beliefs upon. So of course we know the whole heliocentric model has some very fixed explanations which they're not allowed to change because that affects the whole model. These explanations have been worked out to fit a presupposed model, whereas once you break free of that one thing, whether it's the rotation, whether it's the rotundity, whether it's looking at the land and the sea rather than the sky, all these things are kind of fixed, aren't they? And of course that's the problem when you start analysing everything that you're given as this big picture rather than the compartmentalised views and explanations that we're often given. When you start trying to compare this compartmentalised explanation with that one, and you realise that two different things have to happen in what would be similar similar things, similar observations, because you're assuming that certain things happen to the earth. Yeah, and then you can start questioning, right? Uh, and so, of course, what there appears to be, or what there is pressure, right? Especially when you first get into this, there is pressure to come up with an alternative. So what's the alternative? What's the alternative to us being on a spinning ball going around the sun? And all the other explanations that go with it, the stars being billions and trillions of light years away, and all that, and the planets and everything, our place in the universe. What's your alternative? you know, we don't have to have one. That's not the point. The point is to separate, and that, that just understand and be comfortable with it. The fact that you can see something in a particular way because you've been told, and then okay, you can envisage it, uh, but then you have to believe it because no one's ever actually seen what we're being presented with. Yeah, it's really, really simple. And so, the uh, the Stoic believers, real believers that don't actually have the knowledge, just the belief, will adamantly stick to interpretations of the explanations that we're given, and they think that seeing a horizon is evidence of being on a ball. A flat horizon is their proof. Yeah. Um, it's just a very, very stubborn mindset, and we're all trying to develop ourselves, right? We're trying to evolve our souls. We're trying to find out the truth. Does it mean that we'll arrive at some kind of truth? Well, I think it's enough to know that this whole heliocentric globalist concept of how and why we are here is just it's just nonsense, really. And there are a million other possibilities, infinite possibilities, as to why do we have to kind of jump to an assumption about what the stars are or what they're doing. Yeah, well, only because that's been used as a way to explain us being on a spinning ball. And you have to assume that the stars are certain things, are certain objects. But are they lights in the sky, or are they things that have been reflected from the earth? Are they reflections? Are we seeing mirroring of some sort? Is there a dome? Is there not a dome? Is there more land? All of these questions remain totally unknown. The answers to these questions remain totally unknown. So in my mind, there's no need to start coming up with alternative theories, even if we can see certain things happening. Like, for example, we can create reflections like a disco ball and say, oh, well, that's how stars work. Or we can see light reflected in water, and we can say, well, that's how we see stars. Or we can project light in various ways. Or we can mirror it. There are many, many ways you can kind of recreate a model, right, based on how you assume things might be. But then you've got to, if you're going to have a complete model or a complete answer, then you have to have all the other answers to those other questions, aspects of what's around us that we still can't prove. Okay, ultimately the point here is that this is a spiritual journey, and it's one that the path that's walked by the truth seeker. Of course, one of those first realizations is to realize that we've believed things that we didn't really know and can't prove, and appeal to authority. But then once you realize that we don't, and accept and surrender to this, that we don't have the answers, whether you're talking in terms of physics or reference frames and all this kind of thing. Yes, you can assume this and that, and you're in a different position, and if we were looking at it from this way, we'd see it that way, and if we were doing this would happen. of course, you can draw comparisons in many different ways with many physical examples and models, and that's fine. But they're things to consider. They're food for thought, and really, to me, the point isn't really to come up with an alternative, just to placate those who feel lost without a model or an explanation. And of course, that's again part of the heliocentrism's steadfastness, I suppose, is because there are all these explanations and a story that people can adhere to, just like a religion. Yeah, and it's kind of, does its job in that respect, but it doesn't it doesn't relate to our actual reality, our real life experience, right? It doesn't, so being free from that is probably the most important thing. It's not so important to come up with alternative explanations for other people. What's important is to then continue following the path, your personal path, of one that is, of a certain discipline, and towards more and more freedom and detachment, ultimately detachment. And of course, there is discipline is an important thing, right? Because if you're talking about whether it's longevity, spiritual development, trying to evolve as a person or do something positive for your generation, then discipline is involved, right? Your own mind control rather than having your mind controlled by others. Isn't that the point? Yeah. The point is to see the need to do certain things, and it doesn't mean we have to, kind of over discipline ourselves. But you've got to do certain things in life that you might not want to do if you want to get ahead, and it's only because of what you can only build a better future by committing to certain things in the now. So if you know that certain things need to be done, or certain problems or issues need to be faced, then you do it, you get on with it, and that helps set you up with a better foundation for the future from this day forward, from this day being the first day of the rest of your life. I'll always remember back in England, I used to have a friend who lived at the vicarage, and they had this kind of notice board with all these little sayings on it, and one that always stood out to me was, "Today is the first day of the rest of your life." It's so true, isn't it? Yeah. Of course, we might be in a certain situation now because of the past leading up to now, but there's always that opportunity to make that internal change and move in a more positive or productive direction. And that can only happen when you're really, seeing and accepting the things you've said, thought, believed that have brought you to where you are now, and how those can change, or how you can be free of those. It's really about freedom. It really is. You can still be free from the system, and in some way be a part of it, be a part of society. A lot of the elements of the so-called system, or the way things are in our governments, are just, they are there to kind of reinforce or provide a framework for what is considered to be a good, productive, respectable society. And of course, we know that the politicians are supposed to be there to represent the people, but the biggest problem we have is that the globalist politicians are not representing the people, they are representing corporations, so that a whole switcheroo has come about. And that is partly due to apathy, it's partly due to the enormity of the thing, and convenience being a killer there. When convenience arrives, we take it for granted very, very easily. And you can, once people become affluent, you can see that greed becomes trendy. Even there are, for example, you can find videos now where people are just stuffing their faces, and just for the camera, they're eating lots and lots of stuff, which is which is, beyond what anyone would normally eat, and that's I find that, for want of a better word, sinful, because it's you're doing something you're trying to gain attention. These people make money out of these videos, and they're gaining attention by just stuffing their faces. And to me, that's ugh, doesn't well, ultimately this is it, isn't it? You're always going to have aspects of society, you're always going to have a huge number of people that aren't on the same page as you, right? It's always going to be, this is a personal journey. That's the point. It's all a personal journey. You can only make changes in this world by making those internal changes, or at least again making that effort to detach from the conditioning that we were brought up in. Yeah. So for me, it's not important to come up with models or alternative explanations, just an understanding and appreciation that there can be many, many different explanations. And of course, again, if you have one fixed explanation for something, then you've got to come up with other explanations. So let's say, the Earth is doing a particular thing in order to for the physics of this world to exist the way it does. Well, if you want to claim that as a fact, then you've got to come up, you're putting these foundations down for a model in which you've got to come up with explanations on top of that, on that assumption for how other things work, the sun, the moon and the stars and so on. Yeah. So trying to put it all into a big picture is still well beyond our capabilities and our knowledge. And I think, to be honest, in that sense, it is wiser to just accept the perfection and illusion at the same time that we find ourselves in. Talked about it recently, but it's not necessarily a fair and just world, but there's a lot to be said for making a connection. And again, it's making that connection to the earth, to the natural rhythms, to the universe, that is, for example, a lot of people would scoff at the idea that people's behavior changes on a full moon, right? Even mentioning something like that would be something that might be a totally alien idea, and to be so stupid, that's ridiculous, but of course doctors and nurses that work in emergency rooms can tell you that they get more incidences on a full moon. People are a bit more crazy on a full moon, or you have something happens, there's something in the air, right? And this is it. We've lost that connection with nature, and we've lost that trust that we can find our way and our direction in life without having to be told. We're all individuals, and we will go certain places and have certain experiences, but we do have that kind of free will sometimes, where we might stop ourselves from doing something that could allow us to progress, whether it's addressing some of our fears, or just it could be anything. There are always challenges, right? There are always mental, doesn't necessarily mean a physical challenge, but mental challenges. Everything's going on in the mind, right? And this is it. We are regaining control of our mind, and when you have more of a control, to gain control, you just have to have better understanding of it and see it, and rather than being caught up with everything that's going on in the mind. Because if you're not observing what's going on in the mind, then you just get carried away with it. Just saw a news story just now on the Thai news. Some guy was arrested because he'd come home. He was drunk. He'd come home, came home to his wife. Another guy was there. I don't know whether anything was actually going on, but basically, the husband who came home ended up shooting. I'm not sure whether he shot his wife or the other guy, but basically that was it. He'd made a decision based on his free will, I suppose, but in a drunken state, and so all kinds of again, in inverted commas, sinful aspect could have contributed to that, whether it's jealousy or anger or whatever, insecurity, greed, possessiveness, who knows. But yeah, there's the thing, alcohol. Sometimes just a couple of beers is enough to alter your state of mind to one in which you react in a different way to that you normally would if you were more coherent and more aware, had more conscious awareness of what you were thinking, yeah, or what you were saying to other people, or the actions, yeah. So yeah, to me this is all about improving that, or improving that position of being an observer of what's going on in the mind, and how we can become a victim. I do hope, I'm not even looking at the comments at the moment, I'll go back to, I hope you're able to hear this. I'm just not sure the microphone's covered up. Let's go back and have a look, see what's being, oops, gosh, hang on, no, don't do that, I'm trying to, okay, new phone, okay. Mr. Manika, describe the difference between northern and southern star trails. Well, just depends which way you're looking, right? I mean, if I look that way, I'm looking south, and I see the Southern Cross kind of do this across the sky, okay? South, goes over the hills, yeah? I look up, and I see the stars going straight across the sky above me, or sorry, that way, straight above, okay? So everything's going east to west across the sky like that, all right? The sun's pretty much up there now, it's midday, yeah? Over there it's turning slightly, but I've never really looked at the north. I've seen Polaris from here, but I've never done a time lapse. It just depends which way you're facing, yeah, whether it appears to be clockwise or anti-clockwise, if that's what you mean. So anyway, again, there you go, there's a demand to explain what the stars are, and assume that they have some kind of influence on the shape of the earth or whatever. I mean, it's just a kind of asinine, single-minded demand, really, that you want an explanation. So, the difference is really that you don't really see much of a trail. You see more like a tunnel effect going off to the north. In the south, it doesn't seem to be that way for me here, anyway. That's as far as I can tell. What does it tell us about what's going on in the sky? Can't tell you, but if you do if you do look at star trails, obviously you can look at it as a tunnel above us, yeah, because the closer stars would do larger circles and they would be cut off by the horizon. Further away stars, you can see them do an entire circle in the sky above you, yeah, but the closer they are, then you might only see it like a rainbow, right? If a rainbow was far away, it would be a circle in the sky. The closer it got, it would be cut off by the horizon, yeah? So there's all sorts of ways to describe it, and there's many assumptions you can make about what's going on up there, but we can't know for sure, and it doesn't really matter. There's no onus on anyone to say what exactly is going on, only because people want to have some kind of comfort with an alternative explanation, but they'd never accept it anyway, because if you're asking that kind of question without the willingness to see it in a different way, then you're not, you're just not open-minded. Basically, you're just not ready to put your mind in that kind of place where you can accept that there are many different ways of seeing something. It's just a case of seeing things from other points of view, isn't it? Really, if you have the ability to do that, then you're growing, you're progressing. If you do not have the ability to see things any other way than what you already see them, and learn from that, or expand on that, or develop, or whatever, then you're stuck in a rut. Yeah, Daniel Floyd, I'd say so, yes, if the stars were actually light years away. It doesn't make any sense anyway, because we're always seeing, stars that are supposed to be, each one is supposed to be much further away than the other one, but no, it really appears as if we're looking at some kind of screen, or at least 2 or 3 layers, or things like that. They don't seem to be independently mega distances away from each other, no. But again, it can be almost like a kind of holographic effect in a way. But yeah, no, it's the only reason to believe that they're so far away is because that's the only way it can make it work in the model. But yeah, and there's so many contradictions in that as well. With for example, if, for example, a star like Polaris has a ground point on the North Pole, but then you could be thousands of miles away from the North Pole, and they'll say that simply, if you're imagining yourself being on a globe, simply looking up in the same direction is the same as looking at Polaris, when it should be something like that rather than like that. So they're saying Polaris has a ground point, but also wherever you look on the Earth to it, the light from Polaris is coming down in parallel lines. Again, it's just ridiculous. Yeah, and the same goes for the sun. This idea that it's hot here in the equator because it's more direct sunlight than somewhere further north or south of the equator, and getting indirect sunlight. Well, forgetting that the sun is supposed to be, regardless of how far away you think it is, the sun is supposed to be hundreds of times larger than the Earth, and sunlight is supposed to be traveling in parallel lines. So regardless of whether you assume that it's silly to think that the sunlight is at a lesser angle that would cause any difference in temperature, because the sun is just sending this massive beam of light out towards this tiny Earth, so it should just really effectively be hitting the Earth. That shouldn't change no matter what the distance. Yeah, so it's just one of those ridiculous explanations. Yeah, okay. Hello, Rockets Push Off Air. Good to see you a bit more active these days. Yeah, that's right. A model is not an explanation necessarily. Yeah, a model is really just what we observe. It can consist of many unexplained things. Absolutely, totally agree with you there, man. It's just, yeah, we can say that you can predict an eclipse, right? You can predict when you just watch the sun and the moon for a couple of months, and you'll see that they are following these paths, and they will eventually cross from wherever your location is. And then you can extrapolate other calculations from that for different locations, right? It doesn't make any difference what shape you consider the Earth to be. You have a pattern, you observe a pattern, and that's the model, isn't it? Yes, it's patterns that can be illustrated in many different ways. Liz, yeah, okay. What's that, Lizzie? They think it's a gotcha question. Okay. Yeah, excavate, hello. To impose physical 3D geometry and shape into intangible lights in the sky is, in my opinion, deeply flawed. Yeah, man. Yeah. Again, it is. How can we really assume anything about what's happening? Fe Nation. You can see the Southern Cross from Marathon, Florida. Oh right, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if it's a little bit lower in the sky for you, because I was saying it kind of like, yeah, I mean it's not far above the horizon, but it just kind of passes over the hills that I can see in the distance there. Earthship Bear is in the house. Huck picking. They appear to be. Okay, Liz Almeida. Fe Nation, hello. Alright, Subtle Infinity, hello. Oh, thanks, man. Okay. Alright, cool, man. Yeah, if you're not subscribed to Subtle Infinity, do so. Got some good comments on, good perspectives on what we're doing here, and so what's the point was the title of this video, and I think the point is that personal development. It's not to come up with alternative models necessarily. As Rockets Pushed Off Air said, the model is there. The patterns that we see are there. There's the predictability in it, but just not to be fooled by that. But personally, I'm kind of finding that a very good way to lead. My one of our cars, my truck, the one that I use all the time, is the engine blew up the other day. Kind of partly my fault, but we're without a truck now, and it's going to cost a lot to replace the engine. It's a lot of hassle. We're not particularly able to get. We're not really able to get to the shop very easily now. In fact, we can't really to the ship shop. So, trying to sort that out as soon as I can. It's going to be costly either way, because once an engine blows, then yeah, it's a Mazda BT50 Pro, so it's the same as the Ford Rangers. And once those engines go, then you're faced with a lot of problems, issues, and stuff. That anyway, yeah. So, but the point is that it's not that kind of thing hasn't happened in the past, and it's not that we haven't gotten through it. And really, to be honest, it really doesn't. It's not an effort really anymore to not be stressed about that kind of thing. There's some reflection on what I could have done to ensure that it didn't happen, but there's some personal blame there, but it is what it is. And in some ways, other things will come about, and we'll arrive at a solution and just get on with it. But in the past, this would have been devastatingly worrisome, and sleepless nights, and just kind of tension and stress, and just a lot of self-blame, I suppose, as well, or trying to blame other people. But really, it's just a case of now being an observer and like, okay, well, we just got to work around this and find a way, rather than getting too emotionally attached to the situation, right? And it's a good place to be, yeah. Because all this craziness and stuff can be going on around you, and we can especially see that with, for example, the this whole, this story that's come out of the blue about conscripting in the UK because the Russia war. It's really just a far out story. They're just having fun. It's a panto with Boris Johnson doing all this and stuff. They are just having a laugh. They are taking the piss. All right, and they're just saying, they're just trying to put the willies up people. Yeah, but it's good in a way, because people are saying, screw you, you sort out, stop going off, you're talking about going off to fight other countries when you can't even sort out your own backyard. And so it is becoming more and more apparent to a lot of people, thanks to the internet and social media and what have you, that, as I said before, the government, a lot of people in the government are just looking after their own interests rather than the interests of the people they were put in place to look after. Yeah, so they have to be put in their place. But even to get to that place where you can kind of have that attitude and understanding is, it takes a lot, right? Because a lot of us will just be law-abiding citizens, and I'm not talking about breaking laws, but just this is a thing, you become so law-abiding that you think someone in a uniform or someone in a suit or a white coat has some kind of authority, and they don't. They're just fallible human beings, just like you and I. And that's it, isn't it? Accepting, surrendering to our fallibility, and treating this whole thing as a learning experience, and really trying to detach from all that conditioning that we've gone through and the indoctrination. As long as you can detach from it, then you are free. You don't have to come up with alternatives. You don't have to say, you just, and then because and I think that happens with any kind of, even with spiritual gurus, especially some of those guys that have come out of India or whatever, and then they get to a kind of certain point where they have some following, and then what happens is then they become kind of consumed with that, and the ego is misdirected into thinking, well, I suppose if they see that they can, how can I say it? We see that people act as sheep a lot of the time, right? And then you might have attained some kind of respectable position because of your own spiritual development, and then so you've got some people that are following you, and then worshipping you, and that's the thing. It's like, no, it happens a lot in Thailand here. You get these kind of monks. Monks are highly respected, but then you get these people that kind of end up using that to their advantage, right? You know, the further along you get in this spiritual development, it's never ending. There are always crossroads of temptation, right? Even for the most, you know, advanced people or whatever. So it's an ongoing process. It doesn't stop. And maybe that's the problem we have with a lot of, you know, normies or sheep or whatever you want to call them, is that there's this point where they want to stop. They want to stop there. Okay, it's like, that's enough. This is my level. This is where I am. I don't want to kind of go beyond that. I don't want to go to the unknown. You stop exploring. Yeah. So I'm kind of not sure where I was going there, but yeah, that if someone attains that kind of guru status, they can then continue to fool themselves into thinking that they are something special, or they've got some kind of special answers, or they've discovered something new, which is, no, this is just goes on forever and ever in eternity. There is the up and down, whether there's 10 people or 10 million people following a certain way of life, or understanding the way things are in a certain way. That is always going to fluctuate, and there are always going to be people that are at different stages, and there are always going to be people that it's funny, the mind plays these mental tricks on you, because people will be more afraid of change than they are of death. Yeah, think about that. And I know this from personal experience, that you know, for example, someone might be told by a doctor, you've got a certain amount of time to live, but we're going to fill you up with chemicals, and we're going to, you know, because we're filling you up with chemicals and poisons and toxins in this therapy, you know, you're going to have to take all these other drugs to stop the pain. We're going to have to give you morphine. We're going to have to knock you out. Da 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 da. Yeah, it's just so people will go through that with this deadline of their life in favor of, rather than actually making some conscious decisions and effort to change their lifestyle and change their outlook. Yeah, people are more afraid of change and the unknown than they are of things that will kill them. Yeah, that's how strong the mind can be. Oh, Rockets. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Oh, that's appreciated. Yeah, it's just nice to be able to share as well. Yeah. Okay. What's this? I can't read your handle, but it's we live in a very controlled environment. They feel their control slipping, though. And it is. Oh, definitely. Yes. Yeah, it's great to see the protests, you know, the farmers. Yeah. Well, this is it eventually. Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? Because nature provides everything, and it's all free. It's all free. It's who or what has put a price on these things. Yeah. Sure, you have to do labor. You have to work the land. But there's something very rewarding about, you know, working the land, and then literally picking the fruits of your labor. Yeah. It's great. That doesn't mean you have to go back to the Stone Age. It's just that we've become very attached to this very specific way of yeah, and it is connected. The whole heliocentric thing, the globalist thing, where you've got certain people in control of everyone else. And I think it is an exciting time, yeah, because we are getting how can we say more? There is this more of a connection made collectively with the fundamental aspects of our existence. And of course, if you're leading a very fake lifestyle, if you've kind of gone into the whole kind of corporate thing, well, I'm sure most people will ultimately become disillusioned with it, right? Yeah, but it's like, you know, when you notice that is dependent on you and your stubbornness, right? But I remember working in a high-rise in Bangkok, yeah. It was a good company. I was working for a shipping company at the time. But they were on the 60th floor of this building, and it was in the middle of the city, and it would take me hours to get there. It was just stress, and it was really good money, and it was like the best job I'd had in Thailand. And the hours weren't that challenging either, but what was challenging was actually getting to work with millions of, literally millions of other people on the roads, and it was just insane. It was just insane. It's like I just no, wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth it. Yeah, it was far too detrimental to physical and mental health to want to carry on pursuing. Yeah. Great view from the 60th floor. But you still can't see because it's so smoggy. Rockets push off air blind, leading the blind, yeah. Lee the boss. Animals travel freely, eat freely, and humans. I know, it's nuts, isn't it? Yeah, animals can migrate. You might see the same starling or sparrow. What is it? What are they called? Sparrows, aren't they? Yeah, sparrows. In they come and go from the UK. They go and build their nests and then they disappear. They don't go. They cross lots of borders, but they don't have to worry. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Mass immigration can be a problem, but yeah, it's understandable that people are heading to the promised land, and it's being done deliberately. Yeah. That's not natural though, is it? That's kind of, again, it's like giving someone an injection. If you're just pushing all these people into a certain community or a country, then yeah, there are gonna be problems. Whether it is as bad as some people make out, it's really honestly difficult to say. But that's one thing about Thailand. Really, is it's very, very challenging to stay here. But in many respects, they have retained their sovereignty because they are very strict about. It may not appear so, but they are strict about who they let in or allow to stay here, at least for the long term. Yeah. So, yeah. If you're an immigrant, if you're an illegal immigrant, then you'll get busted. Yeah, they'll find you. Whereas in the UK, it might be possible to go under the radar for several years. Yeah. Not here. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to catch up really. I brought the whiteboard out, but I can't be bothered to do anything with it. That's okay. It's just nice to have a heart-to-heart talk with you all, and yeah, just I suppose put it out there really that this is a journey where the truth-seeking flat Earth journey is one of realizing the lies and the reason for not necessarily the reason, but how we can be easily bamboozled and how that can affect our entire life. And if you get to that point where you're not so easily bamboozled and you have more awareness of your consciousness and your monkey mind activity and everyone else's monkey mind activity, it makes you wiser, and you can make wiser decisions, without feeling there's a fire under your bum to make those decisions for you. Yeah. Time has sped up. Yeah, yeah, sure, man. Things happen a lot faster. Information is a lot faster moving. The volume of information is insane, and of course that's it's having a discussion. Excuse me, just a minute. I was having a discussion with someone the other day, a glober who hates the whole kind of flat Earth thing, but they all get it. They all understand. They all know that they have to. If they are to take this on, then they're going to experience. It's pre-gret because they know they're going to experience this shift in in everything they know. Their whole world gets turned upside down because, yeah, and they know it. That's okay. But what was the thing though? You see, what I noticed is that if you, for example, Level Earth Observer does a lot of these videos, of course, is pointing out how the whole world, including the people in the rocket stations, are watching CGI, and no one's actually getting any proper images of anything that's happening in space or on the moon or from the moon. It's all just CGI and data. So, you point this out to a globe believer or a globe defender, and for example, for some of those people, Elon Musk putting a rocket up there and launching one of those Starlink satellites, in their mind is, they think that hurts flat earthers, and they think that flat earthers hate people like Elon Musk. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not a hate thing, it's not a contest, it's just that, there is someone who is a businessman and an engineer. And it's really obvious if you're a businessman and you're thinking, okay, what is the biggest business, the most effective business I can do where I can make huge amounts of money? Well, it's going to be the communications industry, right? Communications that's what NASA's all about. For example, NASA, the Apollo missions was, well, whatever they were doing, they were downsizing technology, making technology better, faster, smaller. Okay, and that of course they're just an agency bringing corporations and companies together, and in that respect, you could say that they've helped benefit, they've helped progress and development of technology, but ultimately they're helping companies, homegrown companies. They're giving them work to do. They've got a budget paid by the taxpayer. They say, okay, we need this, we need that, so businesses are able to thrive and grow, local businesses. I don't really see any harm in that. It's been quite beneficial, but ultimately, of course, what's happening is, the taxpayer is paying for the research and development and all that, and then it's being sold back to us. So we're paying for the technology again. That's the thing, these things get developed by these agencies and then they get patented and then they have ownership of them. That's the kind of the evil thing about it, but ultimately it's all about communication and having that dominating that communication space. Yeah. So Elon Musk is exactly the same. He's working in the same way. Whether or not he gets this, less money or whatever, it's the same principle. It's basically getting contracts and being able to do things, and of course controlling the whole thing. The same goes for the Tesla thing. It's really it's quite simple, and it's not necessarily genius. It's just okay. It just makes sense, and it's just the case of going ahead and doing it is where, for example, what is it? SpaceX is the launch facility for Starlink. Two separate companies. One's Starlink is providing the internet. And it costs about if you want Starlink, it costs you about 600 quid or dollars to get the setup to connect, and then depending on how you're set up, it's the minimum is like probably about $150 or $200 a month, and obviously if you're a corporation using greater bandwidth, then it's up to the $2,000 per month mark. So yeah, communication is funny because once you have the infrastructure there, and then people are paying these service rates, it's a fantastic business. It's a great business model. Yeah. So fair shout to anyone that does that. The telecoms people are the millionaires and the billionaires. Yeah. The information technology people. Yeah. Because they've worked out how you can create an infrastructure, and then you have to charge people for using the infrastructure endlessly. Yeah. And so yeah, as far as the business goes, that's it. So with Tesla it's the same. Okay, so you've got the cars that need batteries and they need electricity, and so you're going to provide the network, and yeah, you know, there's the same with the iPhone or products or the Apple products. You know, you create a product or an infrastructure, but then you know, it depends on all the other things that come from that company to function. Yeah. It's just, you know, and that's why these guys are so wealthy, because they've adopted that business model. But it is just business. That is it. That's as far as I can see. There's no animosity, and of course, there's a certain amount of, like in any business, there's a certain amount of deception involved. You have to kind of sparkle it up, polish the turd. You know, you have to make it, whether if it's a perfume, you have to make it seem kind of classy, or have a certain, you know, appeal to a certain demographic, right? Same goes for all of these things, but of course, you know, people in general, no matter what their age or demographic, need communication. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, just having satellites up there doesn't mean that, you know, they're going around a globe. Yeah, that's a big misconception. But yeah. Uh, but this is it. When you, again, technology is great. You can't stop progress. It doesn't matter. That's fine. Things will happen, but at the same time, it's that decision to be, whether you're dependent on it or not. Yeah. And then because then we can form attachments. Yeah, we can form attachments to social media or ideas or culty kind of things. Yeah, lifestyles. Yeah. When really we can, you know, again, it's just being aware of those attachments. Like anything habitual, anything that is a habit, right? It can become toxic. And if you know that you're addicted to something, then you know that to be free of that addiction, then you have to make a conscious effort, and it's a struggle to be free of it. Yeah, but it can be done, and it's not as painful. It's more painful in the mind. The pre-gret is more painful than the actual event, I'd say. Yeah. I was just looking back through the comments. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, it is definitely. Time is definitely subjective. Yes. Lee, the boss, I have an eclipse vid I found, and up close, no moon. 360. Yeah, I do wonder about that. I mean, as I said, the Thais, they don't consider eclipses to be the moon, solar eclipses, right? They consider it to be Rahu coming in front of the sun. Yeah. So in the kind of Vedic and Buddhist astrology, then these bodies, Rahu and Ketu, exist in the sky, and they are dark bodies, and they're what cause the eclipses. You can also attribute lunar eclipses to those as well. Yeah. So yeah, and they bang pots, ding 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 ding. They get out there and bang pots to chase away Rahu. Yeah. What's that one? Okay, we got some argument about time here. Sorry. Yeah, 24 hours. Yeah, the whole 24-hour thing is weird. Again, it's a kind of, it's fixed us in this idea of days having a certain length, but they don't. There aren't any 24-hour days. Yeah. That's another aspect of it, isn't it? You know, kind of disassociating from the whole time thing. Yeah, because people think, oh, time zones prove the globe. Oh, gosh, is that really as shallow as your thinking goes? Yeah. Time zones are, you know, that it shows that they've had to make stuff up to force fit this 24-hour clock, which is only a way of dividing up circles, right? It's not how time really works. Yeah. It's just, oh gosh, it's very difficult to read. Sorry, my glasses are in a terrible state and the screens. So let's see if I can. Okay, that's nice to see that it's, oh well, all beef, hi. Yeah, lovely. Okay, hey the boss. Okay, I have to look at the comments later on. So, hey, yeah, I just hope it's been nice. It's just been nice to catch up, and yeah, just wanted to say that. I think it's a good time to stop there. Appreciate the comments and appreciate you looking in and sharing some ideas. It's always good. I'm still doing stuff. There's lots else going on, but trying to keep this going. So wish you all a good weekend for now. Have a good one. Be happy and free, and go with the flow. Yeah, it's a lot more fun. Take care for now. Yeah, thank you very much.